we're under the pump early with the ball. They were going at tens, and I looked at the scoreboard and went, all right, this is it's time to stand up. So I absolutely love those situations. We play a lot of cricket where you don't feel like that, and World Cups is exactly what you play for, and to be in those positions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Cricket Unfiltered. I am Menas, and I'm here to review Australia's World Cup match versus England. I tried to record something after the game finished, but I was too cooked. It was 7 a.m. in the morning here, and I've been up most of the night. But lots to talk about. A big win for Australia. They win by 36 runs, a convincing performance, and it certainly put England's World Cup defence in jeopardy. Australia go to the top of their group with 2 wins in 2 matches. And you heard there Adam Zampa talking about how he likes those pressure situations. And he certainly came on when Australia was in trouble. I wouldn't say England were favourites from the position, but things were about even Stevens. England were none for 70 in the 8th over, and they looked like they were going to go on and put up at least a pretty good chase, even if they didn't win. But in the end, Zampa got out Phil Salt and Joss Butler in consecutive overs, and that stemmed the flow. And then England were never able to get back into it. And a big win for Australia. So, talking points. Let's go through some of the talking points. Starting at the beginning of the day, Australia made a big selection call, and maybe this indicates that their best 11 is what I think a lot of people, what they think is their best 11 is what a lot of people think, and that is they've brought in Pat Cummins for Nathan Ellis. So you've got the big 3, Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, Zampa, Maxwell, and Stoinis as your bowling lineup. Still remains to be seen whether they're going to try and play their best team right throughout the competition or they're going to switch. I would like to see a Nathan Ellis on these slow, low wickets as the tournament goes on. I mean, we've seen in matches right around the competition that the pitches vary in quality, vary in pace. And yeah, I would have thought Ellis with his variety may actually be a really good weapon. Even though Stark, Hazelwood and Cummins, well, especially Hazelwood and Cummins bowled exceptionally on this pitch. I still think if the conditions continue in the same vein, then a bowler like Ellis is going to be tough to get away. Then we got to the toss, and England skipper Joss Butler won the toss, and he sent Australia in to bat. And after the game, he was asked whether this was a mistake. He ummed and ahed about it. He said maybe it was, but he also said that it was probably a bigger mistake bowling the spinners to open up and bringing Will Jacks on as in the second over that got hit for over 20 and 3 sixes by Travis Head didn't work out. So, look, Butler conceded that he got his tactics wrong at the top. The toss, probably one of them, might have been a pitch to bat first, get some runs on the board and try and defend it. But yeah, so Australia started off exceptionally well, sent into bat, and we got a bit of a classic David Warner. He hit 39 of just 16 deliveries. He hit a number of sixes. He was just absolutely smoking them. Travis Head hit 34 of 18, and it was a scintillating start. After 5 overs, Australia were none for 70 already, and just going the absolutely barnstorming rate. Head hit 3 sixes. Warner hit 4 sixes. One over, David Warner took on Mark Wood and smashed him out of the park a couple of times. So it was just a dominant performance from Warner and Head. We thought we'd need Jake Fraser McGurk in the team to see that kind of start. But England just got their tactics wrong. They opened the bowling with Mo Ali. He bowled a good first over, but Will Jacks then got taken for 22. Jofra Archer bowled pretty well, but then Mark Wood got collared in his first over. He went for over 10 in his 3 overs. So, a great start for Australia, and that got them above par. Until this stage of the competition, there'd been no scores over 200, and Australia did get there. They posted 7 for 201, but having that big start allowed Australia to consolidate in the middle overs. And you don't often see that, but I guess because we're playing in the Caribbean and the USA, but especially in the Caribbean, where pitches aren't like in the IPL where they're, fast and come onto the bat these are going to vary in pace. And, we saw both spinners. We saw Adil Rashid at times bowl really well for England. He got collared a bit, but, there were times he looked to trouble the batters. He got the breakthrough, getting Glenn Maxwell later in the game. But, I thought, and then Adam Zampa bowled exceptionally well for Australia. So, spinners and slower bowlers are going to come into it. And we saw Australia consolidate. Mitch Marsh. So Head makes 34 off 18, Warner 39 off 16. They go in consecutive overs. That brings out Marsh and Glenn Maxwell. Mitch Marsh made 35 off 25. Looked pretty good. Couldn't quite get hold of it. But then we saw a very subdued Glenn Maxwell. He made 28 off 25. And he just tried to get some time out in the middle. And I actually think it was probably the right tactic, because what Australia didn't want to do after such a good start was lose a clatter of wickets. They lost Head and Warner pretty quickly. If they'd lost a couple more, then all of a sudden, they have to look at, they don't have a long tail, but, they don't have many all-rounders down the order. You got Cummins coming in at 8, Stark 9. So, you don't want to be 4 or 5 down with 10 overs on the board. So, Marsh and Maxwell steadied the ship. Marsh was out stumped off Livingston, a very peculiar dismissal. Marsh just dragged his foot. It was a very sort of quick stumping by Butler and very understated sort of celebration and dismissal. But upon review, he was out. That brought Marcus Stoinis to the crease, and he played really well. He had 30 off 17 deliveries. Very good innings from him. He's started this World Cup in hot form, 2 4s and 2 6s in that innings. And, Australia, what they did well in this innings was there was one short side on the ground. There was a longer boundary. And this is one thing I've noticed, commentating and working on a lot of T20 cricket, is that the players really look closely at the dimensions of the ground. And, when you're talking about little 1%ers or, those little differences at the top level, they are looking at, okay, that boundary's, 5-10 meters shorter. I've got obviously a lot better chance of clearing that boundary. So we saw Australia right from the second over of the day. They targeted that short boundary right the way through. And, one stage Warner hit 3 6s in 4 balls off Mark Wood to the short boundary. So it was very clever from Australia. They were 2 for 102 at the 10 over mark, and they finished at 7 for 201. I guess a notable talking point from towards the end of the Australian innings was that Matthew Wade was batting, and you all know I'm a Matt Wade stan. He's, I'm ahead of the Matt Wade fan club. So he comes out to bat, finally get to see him batting in this World Cup. Missed him in the first game. And he's batting to Rashid, and the music starts. So Wade goes to back away, but Rashid is kind of already started his bowling run up. Wade backs away last minute. I've got to say, it was very last minute. So last minute, and I'll give the umpires a little bit of, I'll let them off a little bit here. It looked like he might be backing away to play a shot, a premeditated shot that we see so often in T20 cricket. But, he backed away because of the music. He played the ball because it was at him, like would have hit him on the pad. And the umpire said, well, I'm sorry, but that's a dot ball. It's not a dead ball. We're not going to re-bowl it. But Matt Wade thought because he backed away, it would be re-bowled. Joss Butler was asked about it afterwards, after play, and he said he had so much on his mind, he didn't really think about it. And my good friend Ben Horn from the News Corp papers wrote an article saying that here was a chance for England to invoke the spirit of cricket and say, oh, no, umpire, I think this was a dead ball. He clearly backed away. But instead, no, they decided just to play by the rules. Now, funny enough, as I'm a noted, I'm still bitter about what happened in the Ashes last year. I didn't even think of that. And because Ben Stokes is there and it's different characters, but it's 100% true. You didn't see, Bairstow running in saying that they should, re-bowl the ball or anything. So, again, it just further underlines how England, wanted to use the spirit of cricket when it was convenient for them. Just forget it. Just play by the rules. And do I think Wade was hard done by? Slightly. But as I said, watching it live, I thought that was really cutting it fine. And I'm a Matt Wade stan. So, but what this did do is it fired Wadey up, and this is fire Matt Wade up at your peril, because look out the rest of the tournament, because once Matt Wade gets a bee in his bonnet, he's unstoppable. Adam Zampa was asked after play about it in the press conference, and he said that Matt Wade was fired up the whole game, and he's such a passionate character, and when you get him fired up, he can be quite intense, and he certainly was. So he finished 17 not out. Mitchell Starc was not out at the end. Tim David made 11 off 8. But I guess the feature of this innings from Australia was a lot of starts, but no one got a 50. Head 39, Head 34, Warner 39, Marsh 35, Maxwell 28, Stoinis 30. But in the end, they finished 7 for 201. Jofra Archer, probably the best of the England bowlers, 4 overs, 1 for 28. Chris Jordan, 4 overs, 2 for 44, bowled okay. But yeah, Jofra Archer, the best of the bowlers. Adil Rashid bowled pretty well as well. And the England team didn't look like a happy bunch. Like, there was one point when a ball went between Bairstow and Jofra Archer, and they kind of looked at each other. This was off Rashid's bowling, and Rashid sort of blew up at them. You could tell that England aren't a happy team, and they've lost this game. They're struggling in this World Cup. This follows on from a very disappointing 50-over World Cup last year, and they're pointing the finger at each other. And the Australian coach Matthew Mott, Australian coach of the English team, he'd be under the pump. But Butler's leadership, he's under the pump, and they lost. We'll get to the chase, but they lost by 35 runs and 36 runs, and this means that they're now got to hope that Scotland either loses to Oman, or they can beat Scotland in net run rate, and it's going to be a close run thing. And God, wouldn't it be terrible if England got knocked out in the first round again? I'll be shocking. So they're the defending champions, and so far this defense has been woeful. So England are coming out chasing 202 to win, and they get off to a really good start. Stark's expensive. His overs all day were expensive. His figures were 3 overs, none for 37. But his first over was pretty expensive. And then Hazelwood, he conceded quite a few in his first over. And that just allowed England to get off to a really good start. So England were 40 after 4 overs. So they were going, pretty well at this stage. And then they slowed down a bit. They were none for 54 after the power play. But then in the 7th over, Salt edged one off the outside edge of Stark. Head was on at 3rd, went to take it, but touched the rope while catching it, and that went for 6. And Aaron Finch was very critical of Head, said he should have done better. They should have caught it. So at that point, you're thinking, oh, this could be going England's way. Australia's let Salt off the hook. They've started well, wickets in hand. But then Salt is out first ball of Zampa's spell. Head would have been relieved. Again, Zampa just came on, top spinner, gets through Salt's defence. He's bowled for 37. And that really was, from there, England just weren't able to recover. Brought out Will Jacks. He made 10 off 10. But Butler was the next to go in Zampa's next over, reverse sweeping, caught around the corner at, short 3rd, but reverse sweeping. It's almost a short fine leg. And again, Zampa's the player that does it. England, I wouldn't say they were cruising, but they were on top. And Zampa gets 2 huge wickets. And, he was asked about whether how he feels about being in the shadow of Shane Warne. And have a listen to sort of his answer.
Never really thought of it that way, to be honest. Like, I had to fight for my position in the team for a long time, and then I was lucky enough to have captains that backed me. Finchy really backed me, and it's the same with Como and Marshy as well. And under this coaching management, my role is clear. I've done the work over time to build up that skill level. But in terms of actually my role in the team, I get backed to take wickets and try and win the game for us. and I absolutely feel that with our leadership. So, yeah, as I said, I reckon I did the work when I was young. I went through some rough patches for sure. I got dropped. I was in and out of the team a little bit, and then I was probably in the team and not bowling that well. But the last few years, that skill is definitely better than it was 8 years ago when I started. And then, yeah, as I said, the leadership's just it helps me feel at home.
You heard Zampa there talking about his development, and he's, such a weapon for Australia. Was so effective in the 2021 T20 World Cup that Australia won, and then also in the 50 over World Cup last year. Held it together despite physically struggling. And yeah, I think it's really hard to compare Shane Warne to anybody, because Shane Warne's just, the best bowler, best leg spinner, best bowler many of us have ever seen. And, it's hard to compare them, and they bowl so differently. Obviously, Warne was all about drift and spin, whereas Zampa's a bit more about top spin and wronging, and he doesn't turn the ball a lot conventionally. His leg spinner doesn't turn as much as Shane Warne's. I actually think Zampa compares more to a Brad Hogg, who won a couple of World Cups for Australia, even though Brad Hogg was a left arm leg spinner. I think have similarities. Zampa's wrong and is hard to pick, and both Hogg and Zampa are quicker through the air, rely on top spin more, and I guess as well, limited overs cricket's changed a lot since Shane Warne played. So batters are going harder than they did, and interesting to ponder how Warne would have adapted to the way modern batters approach the game. They're a lot more willing to take risks. Anyway, so Zampa changed the game, and from there, England just batted it out basically for net run rate. I mean, it's never a chance. So Jacks was next to go, caught by Starkov, Stoinis, and underrated great performance from Stoinis with the ball. 3 overs, 1 for 24, just went in 8 runs and over. Terrific spell from him. So Adam Zampa finished 4 overs, 2 for 28, going at 7 and over. Pat Cummins, 4 overs, 2 for 23, went at 5.8 and over. Thought he had some soft overs there. And I'm not knocking Pat, but a couple of those overs were bowled when the game was gone and they were just trying to bat it out. Josh Hazlewood, he's really developed himself into a bowler that can bowl into the wicket with different grips and different cut to mix his pace. So 4 overs, 1 for 28. And then Mitchell Stark, I said 3 overs, none for 37. So England finished 6 for 165, a long way behind. And Moeen Ali made a nice 25. Harry Brook was 20 not out. Liam Livingston made 15 off 12. But in the end, England never really mounted a serious challenge after that opening partnership. And, this really does leave England's defence in tatters. So, basically the most points England can get now is 5 points. And that is the most Scotland can get as well. If they beat well, actually, that's not true. Scotland could beat Australia. And then, we are taking that for granted. And if this World Cup has shown anything, there were upsets. I was listening to Jeff Lemon on his show, and he was making the point that we also could get in a situation where the last game of the group is Australia v Scotland. And Australia might be in a position where they can bat slower or allow Scotland to get closer to them, so that knocks England out. And I would love that. That would be the best thing. If we can, if we bowl Scotland out for 100 and say, we have to chase it in 19 overs, because that'll allow Scotland through. I'm all for it. Absolutely. If you've got a chance of knocking England out, you definitely do it. So, yeah, hopefully Scotland beats them out and beats them really well. And then that means England are up against it. And they just don't look like a happy team. Butler he didn't look happy in the lead up and during the afterwards as well. But in the Australian batting effort, England was so slow within the overs that they had to have an extra fielder inside the circle for the last over. And it didn't turn out to be too expensive because Australia didn't really capitalise. But it just sort of shows that they're just not doing the little things right. It's hard for Butler, being the wicket keeper, running down to talk to the bowler at the top of his mark. So just all in all, great stuff for Australia. Key performances. I guess what I take out of this, Head and Warner, that's the sort of explosive start we needed. And I guess a lot of us including me, maybe thought Jake Fraser McGurk should have been there instead of Warner, or could have been there instead of Warner. Well, if that innings is anything to go by, Warner's going to go out on top. Stoinis, another great all-round performance, runs and wickets. So this is really, I guess, going to hold off Cameron Green at the moment. If they bring Green in, it might just be to give him a run before the knockout stage. You'd have to say, though, now that Stoinis has solidified that all-round position. Big performances with the ball from everybody. Cummins coming into the side, Zampa, Hazelwood, Stoinis. So great start to this competition for Australia. They've got 2 more games in this group. They've got Scotland, who, that'll be a big game. I mean, that's just going to be a really huge game, and that's the last game. And before that, they've got Namibia, I think, which is on Wednesday. So, look, they've done the hard work. Now they've got 2 wins. They beat England. That means they should just be able to canter into the next round. And those that had Australia favourites for this tournament, I think would be feeling pretty good now. They're really looking like the experienced unit that has won so much over the last couple of years. All right, well, that's it for Cricket Unfiltered. That's it for me, wrapping up Australia's 36-run win over England in the T20 World Cup. Any win over England's good in any sport, any time, but in a World Cup, it's much sweeter. And when it puts England on the brink of elimination, it's even sweeter. And then the cherry on top is when England do not invoke the spirit of cricket, when they obviously last year said Australia should have. So it was, a great night for Australian cricket fans, not a great night for English cricket fans. I'll be back soon. So I've got two podcasts coming up this week, where we'll be looking at the whole World Cup. There's been so many upsets. There's so many things I want to talk about. The pitches, a lot of issues. So I'll be catching up with Chris Hockman from the US. Also got Damien Watson. So stay tuned for those. Also, I'll be reviewing both the matches this week from Australia. But Australia's World Cup campaign is looking very good.